Welcome to the Social Engineer Podcast, the Security Awareness Series. This is episode 183, closing in on that 200 mark. I'm Chris Hadnaghi, CEO of Social Engineer LLC, the Innocent Lives Foundation, as well as the Institute for Social Engineering. And I've been hosting this podcast since way back in 2009. And see, Ryan, now the Scottish accent was in my head. I almost tried it again, but I'm not going to do it. We were talking about terrible Scottish accents, and that would be me. But I'm here with my co-host, Ryan McDougall, said very American-like.
Well done. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Social Engineer, and I'm also the lead open source intelligence trainer. And I've taught multiple years for public and private classes for SECom. I've also been in the information security industry for about 24 years, with focusing the last 9 or so on adversary simulation and security awareness specifically.
Well, thanks for joining us. And just a few quick announcements before we get to the guest. If you're interested in anything to do with social engineering, of course, please check out our site, social-engineer.com. We just redid it. And if you're interested in looking at some social engineering services, like maybe you're worried about vishing or phishing attacks or what the adversaries might do against your company, Social Engineer LLC focuses on helping you understand all those type of attacks by learning how to defend against them. So check out social-engineer.com. You can request information, set up a time to chat with us, and we'd be more than happy to help you out. Now, if you're an enthusiast or hobbyist and you just like to talk about social engineering all the time, then you should definitely join our Slack channel. There's, I think, over like 1,200 or 1,300 people in there now. We even have a job board. We've had 8 or 9 people find employment in other places. But there's groups in there that meet every week and do practice sessions. We have phishing and vishing discussions, psychology discussions, and everything in between. It's a family-friendly place. So if you're interested in that, please join us on the Slack channel. You can find it in the show notes. If you can't, just hit me up on Twitter at HumanHacker, and I'll be more than happy to get you the link to that. Also, I'd like to invite everyone to check out the Innocent Lives Foundation, innocentlivesfoundation.org if you want to head over there. I'm so proud of the team there. We now are over 466 cases. Our mission is to help law enforcement uncover anonymous online predators that prey on children, child trafficking, child abuse material, and things like that. We focus on using the talents here in the InfoSec industry to help law enforcement find those people that are performing those horrific things and then be able to stop them. So check out innocentlivesfoundation.org, and you can check out the team there and see what we're doing. Speaking of ILF, one of the most amazing board members, actually all of our board members are amazing, but you know the music at the beginning of this show is donated to us by the one and only Clutch. So if you have not heard of them, you should go check out pro-rock.com. and listen to their music, of course. You should go see them live because they're more amazing live, which I don't even know how that's possible. But Neil Fallon is on the board of ILF. Go check them out and you will definitely enjoy it. Okay, what else? Let's see. I think the last thing is our training. We get a lot of questions on this. So we are doing better. I promise. We are now putting our schedule for next year up on the site, and it's not even next year. I know that might be mind-blowing, right? Go team. Finally, it only took us 13 years to get there, but we're doing it. So now you can go check out. We have a CIRA course, which is a social engineering risk assessment course. We have a OSINT course, and we have our flagship advanced practical social engineering course, which is in January 17 through 20. But you can check out the dates. CIRA is February 21 through 23, which will be virtual. And our OSINT course, which Ryan himself will be teaching, which is June 27th and 28th, which will also be virtual. You could check that out. And the APSE in January is live right down here in Orlando. So go ahead, head over to social-engineer.com, and you can check out all of our training there. Ken, let's get to the good part. Let's talk about our guest. Today, we're joined by Kevin Gowen. Kevin is the Chief Information Security Officer for Synovus and is responsible for information and cybersecurity, physical security, business continuity, fraud, and financial crimes. Not even sure how someone can be responsible for all of that. That sounds like 5 full-time jobs. Yeah. Now, here's a really cool part, which, by the way, congratulations on this. He was named Chief Information Security Officer in 2015, but he just won this great award, the Blanchard Leadership Award, and was named Tech Exec Network's Information Security Executive of the Year just a few months ago here in 2022. That's awesome, by the way. He earned his bachelor's and master's degree in mechanical engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology. And you know, besides that award, he's an alumnus of the Leadership of Columbus and serves as a board member of the National Technology Security Coalition, along with multiple advisory boards and industry group leadership roles. I don't even know if like my brain hurts reading all of that. Like, I don't know how you even have a life? Do you do anything outside of InfoSec, or is that just it?
Oh man. Well, thanks, Chris. It's exciting to be here with y'all. And I think just like y'all know as practitioners, right? It's a full-time gig and then some, but I'm really fortunate to have a lot of good team members around, and they put up with me and they make me look good, so they get most of the credit for the awards. It's never boring and it's a lot of fun.
By the way, really congratulations on the James H. Blanchard Leadership Award. That's a big deal.
Yeah,
really congratulations on that. That's I know there's a lot of people in that list that can get awarded that, but to win that one, that's a really big thing. So congrats on that. And I think it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you here is because this series, we like to learn from people who have, like you just said, spent their careers and lives really focusing on how to make their company secure. But before we get to all the tips and tricks, what made you want to go into this industry? What was it that you said, I want to be in InfoSec?
Yeah, it's funny because my journey probably looks a lot different than a lot of people's. I didn't start out, as a mechanical engineer. I didn't start out as a cyber guy or even a tech guy, right? I was an engineer guy working in manufacturing. Became a technology guy as my career evolved, first at IBM, then at Synovus. But the common thread through all of it was really around process and risk. And that's really what led me to the CISO role here at Synovus, was having a pretty robust background in both technology and then in the risk side of things. Because I think so much of it is the ability to understand risk, assess risk, and then translate risk into business terms. And then you to the team thing we were talking about, you surround yourself with really good people who can help you develop a plan and translate that risk into business impact, and then what things we need to mitigate and how do we go about doing it.
That's interesting. But now we're talking, like, it's great to hear that. But now we're talking, what about large teams? Like, I imagine that you are managing maybe thousands, tens of thousands, or even larger teams. How do you think about managing that risk when you're talking about people maybe just not in one location across the globe even?
Yeah, I think, it's a really common topic for how do we manage. I think the pandemic changed a lot for a lot of people really, really quickly, right? We already had people distributed around, even though we're largely regional here in the Southeast. I had people scattered around our entire footprint. But you always knew there were times where you were going to be together, people were in offices, and when you all of a sudden find out everybody's gone somewhere else, forces you to think about managing differently. And then when you think about extending out to your enterprise doesn't just include you anymore. It includes all of your partners who are even more closely coupled. And it includes all of your customers. And you all know from what you do on the social engineering side of things, customers are always at risk. And, for a bank and a financial institution, when your customers get impacted, when your customer gets smished and they end up falling for a scam and sending money to somebody, they want the bank to fix it for them. Yeah. And it's hard to do after the fact. But so you have a whole lot more stakeholders besides just the ones that you pay every 2 weeks. So it's an interesting challenge for sure.
That's a big challenge because, thinking about that, we know from working with a lot of financial institutions that you are constantly under attack and in every vector possible, from phishing, vishing, smishing, even in-person attacks. And now with the latest, we just saw all these high-end CISOs having fake LinkedIn accounts, right? And they're trying to use that for banking scams too. It seems like it's a nonstop threat landscape when it comes to your particular industry. So how do you stay relevant on that? How do you stay up on all of these different attacks and know like what's coming next and how you can manage that risk effectively?
Yeah. So that's, it's a challenge for everybody, no matter what industry. You're right. Financial sector, I think we have the benefit. Financial sector is pretty mature from a risk management perspective compared to some other industries, but it's still hard. Part of it is you just got to always be focused on threat intel. The combination of industry things like FSISAC. We use some open source threat intel feeds, the things that come from the government, private companies that we're buying threat intel from. It's just constant. And I think you have to make sure you've built that into your process. You're not just responding to stuff when it comes by, but you're being real active about what's out there, what's our risk profile look like, what new things might be impacting that. And I think it circles back too to having a real clear understanding of who is most likely to want to attack you and why. So that's what are your key assets? Is it personal information? Is it financial information? Is it health records? It's going to be intellectual property. So I think that's a piece of it. And then understand your own environment really well. What's your attack surface and what's going to look like a really tasty thing for an attacker to want to go after. And that kind of have that visibility and challenge yourself about that all the time.
So when you have that much information coming into you, so you have all these different data points that are coming into you, what ends up being your like top 3 talking points for your stakeholders to let them know like the situation that you're currently in?
Yeah, that's a great point, Ryan. Yeah. One of the things that we always do when we're talking to, whether I'm talking to our board of directors like I just did last week or other stakeholders, is kind of continue to remind people, here's the overall landscape. Here's what's going on in the world. And here's which things are just interesting to you, but not real relevant to us. And here are the things that are really, really relevant to us. And what's changed? Is it going up? Is it going down? And also to talk about how we're aligning our work and our investments and our roadmap and strategy toward addressing those things that are the new risk, the emerging risk, the growing risk. Because it's always, it's the old Wayne Gretzky thing, right? About skating to where the puck is going to be. Mm-hmm. But you're right, it's hard because you get overwhelmed with information, and making sure you don't lose sight of what's important to you so that you keep track of what's going to be most relevant is probably one of the most critical things in that.
That was a really good question, Ryan.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you mentioned before, Kevin, is that like not only are you worried about your employees, but now because being a bank, you have all the customers that you utilize you have to worry about. How do you approach education and awareness when it comes to the end user? Because I know with our employees, we could do simulated phishing and simulated vishing, and we can help them that way. But how do you handle that with your customers?
Yeah, a lot of the things are the same. There's a few tools you don't have in the toolbox, right? I can't go fish all my customers, though we got plenty of other people fishing them for us, right?
Yeah.
But it's communication, it's awareness, and different ways, right? We're always putting out new content on our website in the safety and security and privacy section, so that here's what's going on, folks, and that's content we develop. That's things like the American Banking Association comes out with a campaign each year in October for Cybersecurity Month. When something specific happens that we see targeting people in our market, we'll add content onto our website and in our social media channels to try to put that in front of people. So I think it's continually changing it, being real targeted so people understand what's relevant. It's not just be secure, don't click on stuff, but here's some specific examples of things to watch for. Different things in different ways, trying to make it engaging. A lot of the same stuff that y'all do from a security awareness perspective, because different people are going to react to different things different ways. You got to change it up to keep people's attention. It's a lot like what you do internally.
That's an interesting thought. Something I never really asked anyone else. So you mentioned Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I know for us, that's usually a very extremely busy month because we're always going out to companies giving speeches and being part of their Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Do you invite your customers to sit on some of those events and listen to the speeches and things you put on?
We do some customer specific events. They tend to be a little more targeted toward groups of customers. People in a given market or corporate customers or mid-sized bank customers. We're trying to do more and more of that. And I'm always pitching that idea to leaders in our lines of business because the fun thing for us, we rarely get to do stuff that directly touches customers, right? They see the impact of what we do or don't do. So for us, it's sort of a way to add value. It's a way to, our folks love doing that, particularly on the fraud side, getting out and talking to groups of customers about fraud issues. It's fun for us. It's educational for them. So we try to do more of that. But a lot of what we do during Cybersecurity Awareness Month is publish content and try to change it up with things that'll get people's attention. Like I think last year's, there was a part of the theme from the ABA was like a hashtag banks won't ask that. The idea the bank's not going to call you up and ask you for your account number. It's not going to call you up and ask you for your password.
Yeah, that's a really common technique that I try to give out to people outside of the InfoSec is, Microsoft's never going to call you and Amazon's never going to call you. It's like people who fall for those scams a lot. It's good that you put out that same type of message.
I always say my dad is 93 years old, and I always tell my dad, because he's still pretty sharp, and he knows what not to fall for. I say, Dad, Apple's never going to call you. Microsoft's never going to call you. Social Security's not going to call you. They're not going to send you to jail for not showing up for jury duty at 93. Trust me. None of those things are real. Just hang up.
I told one guy once, I said, try to find a number to call Amazon. It's almost impossible. It's guaranteed they're not going to call you, right? Try calling the IRS and see how long the wait for hold is. Your next call is 3 hours and 45 minutes. Like, they're not going to just pick up the phone and make it easy and call you and be like, hey, man, give us some money, right? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, next time I get one of those Amazon calls, maybe just say, I've been trying to get a hold of you guys. I have something I need to return. I need to talk to somebody.
Yeah, seriously. There's how long it takes to find. You have to go through Amazon's 45-page scrolling helpline before they give you the phone number that says call and leave a number and we'll call you back when we feel like it. It's like, what? So whenever I get an Amazon call, I'm always like, yes, thank you for finally calling me.
I have a list of items I need to talk to you about. I hope you have time.
Yes, please. I've been keeping this list for 2 years waiting for you to call me,
Oh my God.
That's great. Well, at least we can laugh about it,
Yeah.
One of the other things that for us that we talk about often here is, right now in America, we were reading that there are 526,000 InfoSec related jobs that are not filled. That we in this industry, and from anything from like what we do to, we're talking programmers and everything in between. So all InfoSec related jobs, 526,000 that aren't filled, and it's not because people don't want to hire. It's because the talent is not there for hiring. Now, I'm sure you're probably experiencing similar things when it comes to the talent in cyber InfoSec, and it's almost like I think you said it. It's at a premium about what it means right now. How are you working on as in your industry and your business and attracting that talent, keeping that talent, developing and retaining that talent?
Yeah, you're right. It's a huge issue. It's got implications for all of us, right? Because everyone's fighting for the same thing, and if the best you're going to do is steal your people from other people, right? It's a losing battle for all of us. We're all dealing with the same stuff. So, part of it's around how do we make the pool bigger? How do you generate interest? How do you get more people with kind of non-traditional backgrounds that we would have thought of interested and engaged? So that everyone has more to pick from. So we do things with schools. We're real involved at the university level with creating kind of co-op and internship opportunities where we'll have people who will come and work for us part-time while they're still going to school. It's great for them in the classroom because they're seeing some practical application of stuff. It's great for us because it's sort of the chance to add something to their experience. We get to try and buy a little bit. We've had a number of really great people who have come from working for us part-time while they were in school to becoming full-time employees and they had a 2-year head start in some cases. So that's a piece of it. Working on things through different industry groups is an important piece of how we just work on the attract part. Part of it is frankly just being out and letting people know the kind of stuff we do. I think you have the concern that really smart folks who are interested in this field all want to go work for, a big tech firm somewhere. And why would I want to go work for a bank? And we try to emphasize, look, there's a lot of really interesting stuff here. There's a lot of bad guys and bad gals chasing us around too. You'll find interesting work. So that's a piece of what we do to continue to make the pool bigger and to try to position us as being a place they should be interested in working. Then I tell my management team all the time, the most important thing we do is attract really good talent. And as soon as you get them in the door, the most important thing we really do is focus on how do you retain people. Yeah. And I think that's about, interesting work, being able to see the connection between what you do and what the company's trying to do, and how kind of that really dark line between what I do and how that adds value to our business and to our customers. And I think that's really important to people understanding the purpose. It's not just a job. It's not just a paycheck. And I think that's even more important now with remote work, because most of our team is now remote. If it feels just another job and it's just another paycheck, you'd feel fine about collecting that from somebody else. There's got to be more to it than that. Yeah. So I think that's an important piece. And then giving people opportunities, grow, develop, challenge them, invest in them, in training and development and learning, and showing that stuff's important and not just saying it, but actually practicing it. I use my own experience as an example for particularly young leaders in our company. So look, I've been here for 27 years, but I've been an IT guy. I've run procurement and third-party risk. I was responsible for all of our corporate real estate, and I'm the CISO. I've had at least 4 different careers, and I never had to leave the company. It's kind of the best of both.
Yeah, that's a great message.
Man, you hiring right now? No, I'm kidding. I'm not leaving, Ryan. I'm not leaving. But no, that's
I will talk to Ryan maybe, but I don't know.
That hurts. Okay, Ryan, you need to go. You need to go, Ryan. You need to go.
Call me.
This podcast went dark real fast. No.
I'll never be invited back, Will. That was it. One shot.
I'm going to have to invite Ryan back from Synovus, obviously. Just interview him, right? Now, what I really loved about what you said in the very beginning was, and I know we all still do it and it's hard not to, but like the idea of just like poaching from other people, as opposed to your idea of let's work with schools to make programs that will make those graduates desirable for my company to hire. That's something that's really near and dear to us because we do that. We're working with a number of high schools and universities throughout the country to help develop social engineering programs that will make those students, when they come out, ready to work for companies like ours. Because we find that a lot of them come out with tons of book knowledge. They can answer any Q&A test under the sun, but then you put them in front of something practical and they have no clue what to do. And we're trying to help change that. Instead of just saying, hey, let's steal everyone else's stuff, let's get the next generation ready, because someday Ryan and I are going to want to retire. Or he's going to retire from Synovus, whatever is coming up. But I mean, we're going to want to retire at some point, wherever we are. And we need that next generation to take over. So I really love that point that you said about helping developing programs, because that seems like something, do you know that are more companies getting involved in things like that? Or is that something that you kind of developed?
No, I think people are, because they're recognizing there's just not enough talent to fill the demand. The other thing that I think is a key point in it too, is we always talk about how do we make our field more diverse? How do we attract other folks to it so that we have folks who don't just look like the 3 of us? And that's an important part of how you do that, right? How do you get people who would never have thought about this engaged and realize, you don't have to have a computer science degree, or you don't have to have a certain kind of background, and there's just tons of opportunity. So, that helps us improve the diversity and inclusiveness of the field. And it also makes the pool bigger. It's a win. Yeah. It's a win all the way around. But I think people are realizing that we can't just get there by looking at just the traditional sources and approaches and just taking one another's talent. I mean, that's what happens, right? People leave because someone else calls them up and offers to pay them 50% more than you were paying them.
Yeah.
That's a losing battle for everybody. And that constant churn doesn't help, because you want to have some level of institutional knowledge that always wants to be challenged and stick around. And if people are just churning every 2 years because they think that's their only path, everybody loses out of that one.
So do you have any advice for like maybe people in your position or around your position of how to communicate that need down the ladder to the people who are actually like sitting in the job interviews? Do you have any type of advice for that? Yeah,
we one of the things that we have a local university here, Columbus State University, that has a really good undergraduate and graduate level cyber program. And they've actually started something that's kind of a fast track. It's more than a certificate program, but gets you some hands-on experience along with some classroom stuff. And one of the things they've had us do is come regularly. We sit on their advisory board, so we help participate in developing curriculum and programs. And they've also had us come in, and have me come in and meet with students and do interviews with students and help them, give them some practical knowledge about, hey, this is what you may think is important, but from my chair, these are the kind of things I'm looking for. And these are the kind of skills you want to develop. I love getting to talk to classes kind of when they're first starting out, just to plant some seeds about, things like just don't focus on whatever tool it is, because by the time you're done, there'll be 5 different generations of tools, right? It's not about that. It's about, how you think, how you work as a team, how you approach problem solving. So that's one of the things that we do to focus on that.
Man, Ryan, you're 2 for 2 now. I was like, you got to stop asking the good questions. No wonder he doesn't even want to hire me. Seriously. Man, can you ask a dumb question real quick? No, just kidding.
I'll have to think of it for a second.
Ouch. He leaves those for me. No, the reason I love that thought, because we were just talking about this, how to attract people from outside the industry. You know, we've been, but we're a really small company in comparison to you. We've been successful at taking people from other industries. Like one of our star vishers, she used to be a sign language interpreter. Another one was a collection agent. Another one was a flooring installer and an actor, right? So we have all these great people from different industries that we've brought in and trained them exactly how we want them to do the job. And now they're amazing at it, right? And they're really, really good. But from a mass scale, right? That's easy for me to do when I have 20 people working for me. But now you're talking about thousands of people, and you may have a hiring pool where you're like, I need to hire 20 people this week. So that question, like, how are we going to get that messaging down into those areas of the job force where someone might not even be thinking, I ever want to go work for a bank in the InfoSec industry?
Yeah, that's harder for sure, right? Because it's easy to describe it kind of as a contact sport. I'm engaging directly with people, and I can deliver that message. How do you do it on scale?
Yeah.
Part of it's program level stuff. Part of it is how you position your company, right? And how you message that out. And part of it is all your team members. You know, our team members are a force multiplier for our recruiting. Some of our best talent comes from other people who already work for us, who say, I have a really good experience here. This is interesting. Other than Kevin, they've got a great leadership team. You ought to think about coming and joining us, right? Whatever those things are, and that helps scale. And then part of it's just getting out and being visible, participating in industry groups. And that's something that we try to create opportunities for all folks in our organization to go do. Kind of spread the word, and someone tells somebody else who tells somebody else, you hope.
So if you were sitting in front of a group of CISOs right now, and you can give 3 pieces of key advice, things that you think that you wish you knew when you started that position, when you were handed the keys as a CISO, if someone could have given you these pieces of advice, it doesn't have to be 3, I put a number on it, but is there anything that you would tell CISOs sitting here right now that you wish you knew when you started out?
Yeah, boy, it's a long list. So I think it's a few things, right? And none of these are like rocket science, but one is make sure you have a clear picture that if your organization doesn't already understand security is everybody's responsibility, you need to get that point across, right? You're not the owner of all risks. You're not the one who's going to mitigate all risks, right? So it's a cultural thing. And how do you get that from the top down? As an example, when we do phishing exercises, we fish everybody from the CEO on down. And
I love this.
And the execs are just as engaged. And on the rare occasion that someone at the exec level, clicks on the wrong thing, they will typically call me and self-disclose, usually starting with an apology. I clicked on it. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have.
Can I get an amen, Brother Kevin?
Yeah.
This is. I love this message right now. I love it.
It's such an important part that if you come in thinking, okay, my job is to address all security issues and solve all risks, close all risks myself, you're done, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a piece of it. A second one is make sure you really understand what are the most critical assets in your company, whether they're physical assets, information assets, is it intellectual property, is it health records, is it customers' personal information, is it financial records. Have a really, really clear picture on what those most critical things are and how you figured out they were the most critical. Because the things you think are most critical may not really be the most critical to the business. So go out and invest the time and understand that, because, a question you get all the time is certainly from a board level, right? What are the most critical risks? What are our most critical assets? What are the crown jewels? And then how do you connect all the things you're doing and focused on and investing in to how that's mitigating the risk to those things? So I think that second one is really understand all your critical assets.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
Before you continue, because this is interesting. So you said at one point, the thing that you think is a critical asset may not really be a critical asset. So how would you suggest that we question ourselves to know that we're actually focused on the right critical assets?
Yeah, a big piece of that for us, in that long list of stuff you read off that my teams have responsibility for, business continuity is one of it. So a big piece for us is the ongoing business impact analysis process. And I mean, that's the way we can, and the way we take risk and translate it into financial terms gives you real insight into, okay, so what are the things that create the greatest business impact? And then underneath that, okay, so what are there assets associated with that could be, stolen, encrypted through ransomware, not backed up effectively so you can't recover. So I think it's making sure that you're getting the business input so that it's easy to forget when you have roles like ours that you're there supporting a business and they do things that generate revenue. So you really need to understand what assets are the things that are most critical to them being able to generate revenue and serve customers. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of how I see those dots.
Thank you. Yeah, that's
and it works both ways too, right? Because that gives you credibility with your business partners that you actually want to understand what's important to them.
Yeah. Well, those are some great pieces of advice. I mean, I didn't want to stop you. Did you have another one? Or
well,
if you don't,
I'll throw in one more because it's one that I think is really important. That is, always be willing to let other people come in and tell you how you're doing or not doing. And don't just rely on your own judgment. There's always this feeling like if I bring in someone to look at my program and they find things that I should be doing better, that's bad. The reality is I'd rather have you come in and tell me what I need to do better than have something bad happen and find out I should have been doing it better all along. So I'm a big believer in bringing knowledgeable third parties, effective challenge of what you're doing, understand where you are versus peers. I love that one. It's the old thing about I don't necessarily have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun some of y'all.
Yep.
And the same thing applies. I don't want to be the easiest target in my industry.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need to be the most secure compared to a gigantic bank, but you kind of want to know where you stand. So I think being willing to bring in people to look over your shoulder and assess and advise is a really important thing to be willing to do.
I can honestly say that level of humility is refreshing for us as normally coming into a company as a vendor. Sometimes it's really hard because we see something and we need to tell this team, hey, this is really not you've been fishing for these many years, but really this is not the right way. And we always have a hard time if they're like, well, this is the way we've always done it. So we want you to continue doing it this way. And we don't want to hear your opinion. And we're like, why did you hire us?
Exactly.
Right? Why are you paying us? Please let us do the job you were giving us money for. So that's refreshing to hear someone say please tell me, because that's, that helps us be better at our job.
Yeah, it's a no lose deal. If you tell me you're doing everything great, that's a win. If you find things I should do better and I get to go work on them before someone else finds out, that's a win.
And that's when for us, that's what we consider our job. We want to find those flaws before the real adversaries do, because we don't want anyone ending up on the cover of the New York Times as the next victim of a ransomware attack or something like that.
And not only that, we find it refreshing to tell our clients, you're doing really good things. Not everyone is failing every single time. You're doing really good things. That's actually really refreshing for us to be able to say to them too.
Oh yeah. You like to deliver good news, but bad news if it's constructive, right? I mean, like you said, Chris, I'd rather get a report from y'all on what I should fix than find myself in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or American Banker for how I screwed something up.
Yeah. Most people with great attitudes like yours and all this success have had mentors in their career. Is there anyone that you can think of that you would say without them, you would just not be where you're sitting here today?
Man.
I know the list is probably long.
Yeah, I know. Can I cheat and give you a few?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
For different reasons. Thank you. For different reasons. So one's my father. And I mentioned my 93-year-old dad earlier. And that's where I really learned about a work ethic. But even more from him, two things really stand out as I think back now. Just one is how he invested in himself. He was already married and raising kids, and he went off and finished his degree and got an MBA.
Wow.
And so and over time, you have a better understanding of the sacrifice it took to balance that. And the other was while being really diligent and dutiful in his long work career, he always found time to balance his family with his work.
Oh,
he was getting on the commuter train to New York City every morning, getting home late every evening, but he still coached baseball teams. He still coached basketball teams. He always had time for that. So that was one. Another one for a different reason. Very early in my IBM career, I worked for a manager who kind of really helped me understand what it was like to work in a large corporation, right? By how he behaved and the activity and what he modeled. And the other thing that stood out, he gave me opportunities to get engaged in projects, sort of present things to senior level management. And he did it in a way where it was kind of pretty low risk for me. He probably told me in advance, look, this guy's still learning, so don't be too hard on him. But that's important, people to give you the opportunity to learn and grow and develop. Yeah. And then the last one would be, I worked for a gentleman named Al Gula, who was our COO here at Synovus for about 7 years before he retired. And he had a lot of executive experience. So that's really where he helped me understand how you need to think differently at an executive level. It's really about the business and where you fit. and the big picture, and how you interact and engage in the boardroom, and how you build and maintain executive level relationships. So, all of those things put together, I think, is, stuff I've tried to put in my toolbox and use along the way.
That's wonderful. That is really great. What a nice list too. As we conclude, there's two other questions I have. One,
Sure.
A lot of people love to kind of follow our guests from the podcast, and figure out what you're doing next, or where maybe they have questions. Where is there any particular platform or
something?
Yeah. Actually, we don't need that question answered. No one cares where you're from or anything. That's fine. Delete podcast. No, just kidding. Nice, Ryan. Real nice.
It was great almost making it on the podcast. Thanks for having me.
Is there a platform or something that's best for people to reach out or follow you or see what you're doing?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably best. I did check last night to make sure there's still only one LinkedIn profile for me, and it's really
smart.
a legitimate one. But LinkedIn is best. A lot of connections there. That's why I try to keep updates on things I'm doing or things I'm interested in, and I love to connect with people there.
We'll put the link to the real Kevin Gowen in the show notes, so people will know, right?
Perfect.
That will go right to Chris Hednaggy, and put your application there, Ryan. Okay.
Hey, Ryan, call me.
And last but not least, books we love to read. As a company, we love to read, and our listeners love to read. It doesn't even need to be about anything you spoke about. It could be nothing to do with InfoSec, but do you have any books that you've read that you were like, man, I want everyone to have a copy of this book?
Yeah, I'm like y'all. I love to read. I grew up just surrounded by books and newspapers and magazines. Of course, that was back when you actually had books and newspapers and magazines in your hand, right? I'm dating myself. So a few things stand out. One, something I've been reading recently for some leadership work we're doing inside the company. It's called the Leadership Challenge. It's not a new book. I think it goes back, it's had multiple versions, but just some really good, simple but clear lessons about leadership, like modeling the behavior you expect people to see, and being proactive and taking on and looking for opportunities and challenges. And probably most importantly, trusting and empowering your team members. I think that's hugely important. It ties back to how do you retain talent? You give people opportunities, you show them you trust them. So I think, so that's one. Another one is one that our CEO recommended to us. And again, it's not a new book. It's a few years old, written by some guys from Bain and Company, called The Founder's Mentality. And their whole premise is that companies lose their edge by not maintaining the focus of a founder's mentality. And they create obstacles that get in their own way. You got to be relentlessly focused on innovating and have a clear mission and stay connected to your customers. And that applies to internal customers as well as external ones.
Yeah.
So that's another one. And then the third one is completely non-business related, but I was fascinated by it. I had the opportunity about 3 years ago to meet a lady named Lindsay Shoup. And it turns out in the course of the dinner, found out Lindsay was an Olympic gold medalist in women's rowing. And she wrote a book about her experience. And what I found fascinating, she went from never having rowed in her life, and she's at college at University of Virginia, decides to join the rowing team. And about 6 years later, she's standing on the podium in Beijing, China, getting an Olympic gold medal in the women's 8.
Wow.
So the story, even when you know how it ends and you know they won, it was like, God, I can't wait to get to the next page to find out what happens with this race, even though I knew they won.
What was the name of that book?
It's called Better Great Than Never.
Oh, man. What a great story.
Oh, yeah. And the lessons in it, I'm a sports guy, right? So the just learning the training and what it takes to develop to become an Olympic athlete, and then the odds against you, and the teamwork and a group of powerful women finding a way to work together to achieve something such a small fraction of folks have. So it was great. She was still writing it when I had met her. So I was excited when it came out, but Better Great Than Never by Lindsay Shoup. SHLP.
To go from never doing something to winning a gold medal in the Olympics for doing the thing is amazing.
And her whole thing was the idea that, it's all about what's possible, right? Don't create limits for yourself, because she didn't walk into the rowing building at UVA thinking I'm going to be an Olympic gold medalist. She just thought I need something to get me remotivated and I'm going to try this, and just kept at it and dealt with the steps forward as you're improving and the steps backward when you feel like you're not, and just, every day. It's a great story and fascinating. I learned a lot about rowing that I never would have known, so I liked it.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. This was, besides you poaching one of my employees right in front of me, this was a really great podcast, No, seriously, the 3 tips you gave, amazing. Really, really, I love the level of self-awareness and humility. And it sounds like the team that works with you and for you probably really enjoys that, which is proof with the award you won, because you don't win that if you're a crappy leader and not doing it right. So, congratulations again on that. And thank you for all the great conversation here today with us.
You bet. Thank you, guys. It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed talking with you all. And Ryan, I'll be in touch. No.
Man, I was trying to end. No. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us. Ryan might not be here next month with me, but if he is, we'll be joined by Mark Ashworth, the CISO from First Bank. Thanks for listening. Make sure to check out all the links in the show notes, and we will see you all next month.